I have a number of friends up here in the mountains of Colorado who work for an organization called Search and Rescue. It seems like every time I talk to my friends who are in search and rescue, they're always doing a training, whether it's a training on how to help somebody, how to, resuscitate somebody who needs help, how to get somebody out of the mountains, or a training in how to stay safe. Because the interesting thing is, the reason that somebody's stuck, the reason someone's in trouble, the danger that was out there is typically still just as dangerous when the search and rescue team goes up. It's interesting because in the book of Colossians, Paul's talking to this young church, this Colossian church, who in many ways are in a pretty dangerous and hazardous environment, similar maybe to the mountains of Colorado, just not physically, spiritually. They have been living under this understanding of the spiritual world that had been incredibly oppressive, focused on spiritual powers of darkness. It's fascinating because Paul, similar to my friends who talk about this search and rescue, talks about a rescue. It's the rescue from this spiritual world, from the darkness. Paul says in Colossians chapter 1, verse 13, he says, "For he, Jesus, rescued us from the domain of darkness." And I can imagine this church in Colossae, who's Paul's writing to, having some similar questions. Okay, we've been rescued from a domain of darkness and transferred to a new kingdom with a king, but is that king prepared to deal with the darkness? I mean, can he handle what's out there? I love, because I think Paul anticipates that question. And he begins talking right after this about this king. Who is this Jesus who rescued them and whose kingdom they're transferred into? In verse 15, Paul says, he, Jesus, is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him all things were created, both in the heavens and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. If the question that the Colossians are asking is this king strong enough? Is he powerful enough to deal with the darkness that we've been living in? The clear answer from Paul is absolutely. Not only can he deal with those powers, he created those powers. All spiritual beings, whether on earth or in heaven, have been created by Christ. All things, he actually says, are for Christ. But there's a second question I think the church in Colossae might be asking. Does he care about us? You see, it's one thing to have a powerful king, but to have a powerful king who doesn't care, well, that's just a dictator. And again, it seems like Paul's anticipating the question. He moves on in verse 18. He says, he, Jesus, is also the head of the body, the church, this relational dynamic. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, so that he himself will come to have first place in everything. For it was the Father's good pleasure for all the fullness to dwell in him, and through him to reconcile all things to himself, having made peace through the blood of his cross. He's loving. He cares. To the point of shedding his own blood on the cross, to be crushed for those whom he came to rescue. To be honest, I have to ask myself that question. Do I really believe that? Sure, I can say it. Yeah, Jesus is strong. Jesus is powerful. He can deal with my issues. And of course, I can say he loves me. But when it comes to dealing with situations, walking through the pain and the hardship of life, encountering relational issues and cultural issues, dealing with, do I trust him with my family, my kids, my friends, my own life? Do I truly walk it out? Do I believe he is powerful? Like the church in Colossae, I have to be brought back to that question. Do I really practically in life believe?